Hello everybody, and welcome to Ancient Architects. Please subscribe to the channel for regular content on ancient architecture, as well as all of the latest news from the world of archaeology. For anyone looking into the ancient Tas Tepeler sites of southeastern Anatolia, the enigmatic T-shaped pillars are often the main focus of study. These limestone pillars are found at Sayburc, Tepe, Harbetsuvan Tepesi, Karahan Tepe, and of course Gobekli Tepe, and the relief carvings on their surfaces have truly captivated the minds of researchers for the past 3 decades. But it's because of the pillars that statues and statuettes often get overlooked. But these amazing works of art could give us a unique insight into the lives of the people that lived in this region 10 to 12,000 years ago. Each statue and statue fragment that's been discovered is unique. Some are solitary animals, some are human figures, some are composite statues arranged in a totem-like way, and some of them include more than one human. I could make a separate video for each statue that's been discovered, but today I want to focus on one specific commonality, and that's the fact that ribs and other bones are often emphasised on these amazing artistic expressions. It's seen most strikingly on the newly excavated statue from Karahan Tepe, an enormous human depiction measuring 2.3 metres or 7.5 feet in height. It looks to be in a sitting posture on the bench of the enclosure it was found inside, and whilst many have noted the figure is indeed male, further up and we can see the man's entire ribcage. In fact, the man also has a pronounced spine and shoulder bones. But why? Why were people being depicted in such a way? Is the statue portraying someone that's deceased? Or is it an indication that the people in the pre-pottery Neolithic were malnourished, and that food was hard to come by? What were they telling us by depicting the human form in such a way? In the 2012 and 2013 excavation report from Göbekli Tepe, this fragment of a statue was uncovered in the excavation zone labelled L956. This is right next to Enclosure B, one of the special oval enclosures at the heart of the settlement. The statue fragment is smaller than life-size, but as the archaeologists say in their report, the ribs and scapulae are emphasised. This fragment also shows the famous V-shaped collar we also find on the Earthaman statue. The excavation zone labelled L956 covers what's been designated as Room 38. A structure dating back to the pre-pottery Neolithic B, meaning it's younger than the earliest phases of the main oval enclosures, which date back to the pre-pottery Neolithic A. But as well as humans, we also have what Klaus Schmidt called half-skeletonized animals. Here on Pillar 27 in Enclosure C, we can see the amazing detail on this predator, which is carved in high relief. The ribs and backbone are clear to see. It is an interesting scene because the predator that's moving down the pillar is in high relief, but the wild boar it's heading towards is depicted in flat relief. The choice of different techniques for these images may not be coincidental. According to a blog post by archaeologist Oliver Dietrich, the small boar appears to be lying on its side, with the predator moving towards it. One possible interpretation is that this is a hunting scene, and the boar that's being depicted may already be dead. The ribs on this animal could therefore imply the animal is hungry, emaciated. Having prominent ribs and associated bones on animal and human statues could well have the same meaning, that the people and the predators were both suffering with hunger. Here we have 2 animal figurines, both predators and both found at Gobekli Tepe, and as you can see, the ribs are shown quite prominently. Interestingly, This is a fragment of an animal statuette, and it comes from the amazing site labelled WF16 in the southern Levant, and it shows the same rib iconography. On this picture that was published by Hugh Newman of the Megalithomania channel, we're looking at a vulture, and again the ribs are shown prominently. This is a wild boar with ribcage on display, and you can also see the ribs of a canid in the background. This predator from Karahan Tepe also looks emaciated, and you can see a clearly defined backbone. Back to the human depictions, and again to Gobekli Tepe, and in a recent video, I showed this figure of a human that's carved onto a pillar of enclosure F, an enclosure that dates back to the pre-pottery Neolithic B. The pictures available are not of the best quality, and I've used AI to artificially colorise the ones I found. But according to archaeologists, there are faint lines below the chest, which could be the outline of ribs. At Sayburc, this human figure also has ribs on display, and at Karahan Tepe, there are even more human statues with ribs exposed. And although no, not every human statue is shown like this, the volume of statues and statuettes that show this emaciated state really cannot go unnoticed. Researcher Hugh Newman has speculated in the past that it may have had a symbolic meaning related to death. But he also says, quote, "It could also be symbolic of the low resources of hunter-gatherers before the agricultural revolution began." End quote. Are these statues therefore showing how important survival was, and just how difficult living conditions were in the pre-pottery Neolithic? Was hunger the main reason for major social changes? Were populations becoming too large to live a hunter-gatherer lifestyle? Were conditions becoming drier? Did the migration patterns of animals change through time? Did all these factors lead to a new way of life and the development of agricultural practices? People creating more sustainable ways to live by growing and storing crops and then domesticating and breeding animals. Klaus Schmidt discussed the half-skeletonized humans and animals a number of times, and I believe until his death in 2014, he still did not know if they represented defleshed, excarnated or emaciated creatures. Other researchers like Ian Hodder and Lynn Meskel believe the meaning may actually be much deeper, and in 2011 they released a paper looking at symbolism at Gobekli Tepe and also the later Neolithic and Chalcolithic site of Çatalhöyük. They note how some animal carvings at Gobekli Tepe have a skeletal back, but retain a fully fleshed belly and underside. At Çatalhöyük, a human figurine shows skeletal parts, the spine is seen and the arms look bony, but it also has a well-shaped, fleshed-out living part. Are we looking at something more cultural? A style of art related to community beliefs and rituals, portraying life in a way that shows both flesh and bone. But could these statues represent death and the deceased? Well, of course, anything's possible, but to me, the animals and the people being portrayed don't look to be dead. This predator is certainly on the prowl, and it looks set to catch a tasty meal, so I'm not sure the bony nature of these statues represents death. But of course I could be wrong, and some have said that this statue is showing someone deceased, and the fact he's holding his penis in his hands could be symbolic of the cycle of life, life being the reproductive organs, and death being the skeletal nature of the body. If we look at the iconography of the Tas Tepeler sites of southeastern Anatolia in general terms, symbolism is dominated by masculinity in both animals and humans. We see wild and dangerous animals, and depictions of both flesh and bone. What's depicted in the style of art was clearly important, and we may never fully understand the meaning. There is probably a shamanic, spiritual and deeper meaning to everything. And we have to remember, just because we see animals and humans with ribs on display, it doesn't necessarily indicate malnourishment. We don't know what was in the minds of the sculptors, and the complexity of sites like Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe don't give the impression of a poor, impoverished civilization. They look like they were masters of their way of life, master builders and masters of animals, and with the vast quantities of food processing implements discovered at Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe, well, it doesn't indicate the people were starving. But saying that, and we do have to consider the evolution of these settlements. Today, we can see they had an intricate and complex nature, and whilst yes, it does appear that once upon a time the people of these settlements did prosper, it doesn't mean it was always the case. The world is a dynamic place, and maybe through the life of the settlement, living conditions evolved, maybe led by the changing climate, and hence the changing behaviours of animals. Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe were actively lived in for centuries, but they were eventually abandoned. And as agriculture took hold, new lower-lying settlements would emerge. We don't know the specific ages of the emaciated statues, but many are found in a pre-pottery Neolithic B context. Maybe they're showing us the final stages of the life of the settlements, how the traditional hunter-gatherer lifestyle was no longer sustainable. Maybe these statues are a very visual way of showing us exactly why Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe were abandoned. People were hungry, and living on high ground and hunting food became a very real problem, for people and also the local predators. What do you think these statues are telling us? Please leave your ideas in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Ancient Architects. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel, please like the video, and please leave a comment below. Thank you very much.